Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Hampshire Cricket Fans podcast. I am one of your hosts. This is Phil Webb at Mr. Webb on Twitter, and joining me is Ian Pearce. Hello,
Hello.
Ian. Welcome
Yeah,
back.
back.
You've been over all the way in Malahide on quite an exciting adventure. Do you want to fill the listeners in on that?
Yeah, I was privileged enough to be chosen for at Gorilla Cricket's commentary team to commentate on the historic first men's test between Ireland and Pakistan. And we were the very first crowd-funded radio broadcast of a test match. So yeah, it was great fun to be involved by that.
Yeah, and pretty
A really
impressive
good
to
test match.
witness a little bit of history as well. I genuinely thought they might have done it on that last day as well. When they got the third wicket on the fifth day, I thought maybe it might just swing it, but not to be.
So 14 for three, yeah, it looked like Ireland could do it. Pakistan might wobble. I think there was a drop catch just after lunch, but after that, yeah, the Pakistan players steered them home fairly comfortably. But it was interesting to see Ireland play. They had good players. They acquitted themselves well. Um, and also it gave me a good look at Pakistan, who, of course, will play in England in two test matches starting next week.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of kind of solid county pros in the Irish team. Just thinking in terms of breaking news as well, not just Irish cricket, but we are recording this just a few hours after Hampshire have announced their new T20 signings.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Colin Munro, the New Zealand batsman, he signs for the T20 campaign, and we've also got a massively exciting prospect in Mujib-ur-Rahman, who is 17 years old. I just can't get my head around seeing
Yeah,
he
that
was
makes me feel
born
old.
born in 2001. I mean, I'm just about used to players being younger than me. I think the only Hampshire
Yeah,
player older than me is Jimmy Adams, and that's by all of a week. But the
yeah,
fact that we're going to start seeing players that are born in the 21st century
yeah. That's a
as
scary
regular.
thing.
So, yeah, he's going to be the first Afghani international to play for Hampshire. He's an off spinner. He's playing and doing well for Kings 11 Punjab in the IPL. He's taken
It's picked up
14,
14. Yeah,
yeah,
14
14
wickets.
wickets at 20 at an economy rate under 7. So that looks pretty good to me. So if you're bowling like that in the IPL, I think that that's great, and I think he will complement Mason Crane and Liam Dawson very well
Yeah, you look
because
at Rashid Khan and the kind of the breakthrough and the impact that he's had. Obviously, really successful Afghani cricketer, and he's been doing the business in Big Bash and IPL. And if this kid performs anything like him, we're going to be, yeah, it's going to be excellent.
well, I mean, even just performing at the level he has been in the IPL, I mean, the Kings 11 aren't the best side. I mean, they might be knocked out in the group stage, but he's certainly doing his bit to help Kings 11. And if he can bowl at an average of 20 with a common economy rate under 7, then that should bode very well for Hampshire. Colin
Ian, do you
Munro.
see him? Sorry, just to stop you there. Do you see him playing alongside Dawson and Crane
Yeah,
and
I think he would.
Taylor as well? How does that going to fit in?
Uh, I mean, I want to maybe talk more about Brad Taylor later on. I'm not sure he'll perhaps get much of an opportunity, but I definitely think that Rahman will play alongside Crane and Dawson. Because if you think about last year, generally you had a Freedy, Dawson, and Crane all bowling in the same side. Um, and I think in T20 you want to probably have more than half your overs with pace off the ball or to be bowled by spinners. So um,
Yeah, I think you look at the root of our previous success with Briggs kind of holding up an end and 4 overs from him and something from Dawson as well. They were the peak of our T20 powers, I think. So, yeah, maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, and at the other end, they've got Colin Munro. So he's out in the IPL at the moment with Delhi Devils. He's not having a particularly great IPL, but he's got 700s in T20s and T20 internationals, and he goes at a strike rate above 150. So I think he's one of these people. If he finds his form, then we're in for some exciting innings.
Yeah, you kind of hope it's not quite the boom and bust Afridi approach. I think when he goes, he's going to go big. I think he's kind of similar style to Chris Lynn, who was a kind of player that I watched in the Big Bash, and he's popped up a little bit in the IPL. Not as effective, but yeah, looking forward to Monroe. I think the two of these guys coming in is really exciting. Hopefully, we can get a winning formula again and pick up our seventh finals day in 8 years.
I think we've had 7 in 8, so this will be looking for 8 in 9. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's good that we've had two signings there that are specifically for T20. That it freshens up the squad. It's not like they're also rans. Do you know what I mean? That we're not sort of signing people for the sake of it. That there looks like an obvious plan and theory behind these signings.
Yeah, we've got from that we've got a bowler and a batsman, and you're thinking that's certainly going to add something. I think it's interesting to the extent that Amla is not going to be with us for much longer, and this is before potentially Dale Steyn arrives. So, if the other thing, looking at both of them, we've got a history of this. If people kind of do well for us, we tend to pick them up, the year after as well, or establishing something. And if Rahman has a good experience here, there may be other Afghani players maybe coming to join us in the future.
That's right. I mean, they're going to start playing Test cricket as well. They had their Test status confirmed the same time as Ireland. I think they'll play their first Test against India next month. So yeah, it's just a really good opportunity to see players that we're not going to see. I think Afghanistan are going to play some World Cup games at the Ageas Bowl next year.
I think there's two scheduled. I need to double check that, but
it's just really exciting. I'm really pleased with these signings. They're not particularly obvious signings, but the more you read about it, the more I looked at their stats, I thought, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think in us discussing these two new signings is kind of taking away from an element of disappointment about our championship form, which I think we reluctantly might have to talk about.
That's right, yeah, and unfortunately, so I think the last time we spoke 2-3 weeks ago, we were fairly satisfied with our placing in the division. We were fairly satisfied with how the opening games had gone, bar a few sort of concerns. But unfortunately, in that period, the concerns have been rather underlined, and I'd say I was far from satisfied now with how things are.
Yeah, in terms of the rare positives, the only things you really say is I really like the live stream at Notts still, but that's pretty much some of the only positives I can take from it.
That's right. I mean, I watched quite a lot of the Notts live stream. Somerset had a live stream too, didn't they? But I didn't get to see any of that being away. But yeah, we'll start with the Notts game. So, unfortunately, from that one, Hampshire lost to Nottinghamshire, who have gone top of the league. But then Notts lost their game immediately after that. So, was it Hampshire lost the toss and Notts decided to bat, and they made 302.
And the partly frustrating thing about that was we did have them at 27 for 3 at that point, but Samit Patel and Ross Taylor really quite a high strike rate, just started to take the game away. I think they picked up about 100 partnership of around 15 overs, and then that was carried on by the tail.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, 302. Okay, we probably let them get a lot more than they should. But and then Hampshire were dismissed for 223.
So at this stage, we're kind of looking at our first innings batting and thinking, well, apart from the fact we're going into the second innings behind, we're just not picking up those batting points as well, which I think in a league as tight as this one, you need to be picking up bonus points pretty much every point you can.
Yeah, that's right. And it was also the same problems about the batting where Amler was consistent. He did his bit. He scored 69. A positive, though, was Lewis McManus batting in a more sensible and appropriate position at number 7, scored 66. But there was just nothing to go with it.
Yeah. I think there's only so many times we can go over this this ground, but Russo again. I think in our program notes for tonight, he is bolded and double underlined with a couple of exclamation marks, which really indicates our general sentiment. At least at the Notts game, we'll come on to the Somerset one in a minute.
Yeah, and then of course Notts batted again because they had a lead. It was lovely weather up there. They were able to build basically an unchaseable target in 468, which again, there was good resistance towards this. They didn't completely fold up Hampshire. Joe Weatherly passed 50 for the first time, so that's a positive. Hashim Amla scored 112, again, his first century for Hampshire. But nobody else backed him up.
Injured finger kind of came out and dug in, I think, from 2 from 58, because we see Vince keeping for part of the second innings as well, I think.
Yeah, that's right. McManus injured his finger, but I think, again, that was fortunate that was fine because McManus recovered to play the following week. But nobody else passed 17, and it meant that Hampshire lost by 203 runs, and they just gained 4 points from the match, which meant they dropped to 4th. So there was a disappointing defeat, and my feeling at the time, I tweeted from, I can't remember if it was our joint account or the my own personal one, about Hampshire had lost nearly as many games in the first 4 matches as the whole of last year.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's that's going to be a factor in terms of tiebreakers, I think you suggested?
Yeah. I mean, it has an effect in 2 areas. So again, you're not picking up the 5 points for a draw. That sometimes you can be second best in a game, but a bit of weather, a bit of sticking around in second innings, you can get yourself that extra 5 points. And secondly, if you do lose the games, then the amount of things that determine teams that are level on points. So I think it goes on most wins, then fewest defeats. And if we've had more defeats than anyone and we end up level with someone, that could cost us our Division 1 status.
Yeah, Great Escape Mark 3.
Or
may
Mark
not be
4.
so successful. Yeah,
it's Mark 4 now.
Literally losing count. Well, let's move on from the Notts game, and let's Somerset a little bit more positive, but we're going to have to drag some of those positives out, I think.
I mean, the obvious good point was is a draw, so we get the 5 points. We actually got 9 points from the game. However, the Hampshire first innings, 231, was massively under par. I mean, if you think the other scores in the game were 506, 432 for the 4 declared, to only take one batting point from a surface like that seems like a huge missed opportunity to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to some extent, you could say that Somerset's score was slightly inflated due to the fact we were pretty much a bowler down, or in the absence of Abbott, who missed, I think, turned his ankle at quite an early stage, only bowled 10 overs overall. But equally, as well as Abbott being out, we went into the game without really a recognised spinner.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I mean, I was sort of following from Dublin there, and I saw the team news, and I thought I was really surprised to see that there was no recognised spinner. Liam Dawson's out with a finger injury. With Taunton, it's been obviously dubbed Cyberabad. So you think if it's going to be a turning pitch, you have to play a recognised spinner somehow.
Yeah.
And if it's not a turning pitch, it's generally very flat, and you need a spinner therefore just to hold an end up and bowl you lots of overs. And that's why I really think that Brad Taylor should have got a game.
Yeah, surprisingly, you look at the Somerset lineup from some of their earlier games, and they've got the Overtons, and they've got Lewis Gregory, and they've got the Scottish lad Davey, and so it's been a bit more seam friendly, I guess, than spin. But yeah, it seems even given that probably this was the perfect opportunity to get Taylor into that starting lineup.
Yeah,
if only to hold up an end.
And I think we're at the stage with Brad Taylor as well, where again he needs a run of games. We need to find out how good he is. I mean, it's 5 years almost since he made his debut as a 16-year-old, and since then he's mainly played second 11 cricket. He's had a few injuries as well, but we had last year Mason Crane away with England, Liam Dawson away with England. And it's possible that the same could happen again this summer once both are back fit, that we might need to use Brad Taylor more. So I would start giving him an opportunity. If he's not quite ready, or not, the coaches think he's not quite at the level, then I'm not sure.
Where he fits in at the club, I guess,
exactly. I mean,
in the scheme of things.
I mentioned with the signings that the T20 signing of Majid means that he won't necessarily get a look in there, but I think for Championship cricket, I want to see him in the side whilst Dawson and Crane are out.
Yeah, I think potentially we might see a bit of him off for the 50 over tournament as well. I'd be surprised if he doesn't play at least four or five of those games. I think it's interesting. He's in some decent form with the bat as well. He kind of picked up quite I think it was a stand of nearly 339 against Kent Seconds over the weekend.
Yeah, when I see second 11 cards over the last few years, it sounds like he's somebody for second 11 that can bat fairly high up the order. So I think in first class cricket, I don't think he'd be a number 10 or 11. I think he'd probably be like a reasonable 9 or something. Yeah. So again, that's why it might be worth getting him into the side.
Yeah, certainly.
It just seemed utterly bizarre to me to go into a game like that without a recognised spinner.
Yeah, and with Abbott missing or absent from some of it, quite a burden of bowling on Berg in his first match back. Well, not after injury, so technically he's only retired from the sleepless nights. But Fidel, chipping in with a good 30 overs as well. That can't be easy at his pace and the amount he puts into the ball, each ball.
Yeah, it is a worry that is he getting too much miles on the clock at this stage of the season. But I'm wondering if he'll sort of be used quite sparingly during the the next few weeks with the One Day Cup.
Yeah, true. Well, particularly if I anticipate with Topley on a white ball contract that he will certainly be featuring in most, if not all, of those 50 over games.
Yeah, so we took 9 points from that game. So the good news is that it wasn't, that again, 432 for 4. They just lost only 2 wickets on the last day. Amla, another century, 107, and Vince, of course, 201 not out.
Amla, top of the run scoring charts, not top of the averages, but certainly highest run scorer in the championship. And I think as a number of people said on Twitter, Chris Kimber tweeted in at Fair and Forever, Amla leaves soon, then what? Which generally does get me worried. Hopefully Northeast and will be back from injury by the time we hit the next round of championship games. But he's international world class player. We're going to miss him.
Yeah, we definitely will miss Hashim Amla. The positive for James Vince was, or not so much for James Vince, but for Hampshire, was that his 201 wasn't enough for him to retain his England place. So we will see more of James Vince than I certainly thought. I thought he would keep his place, but it's not to be. Northeast returns, and Riley Russo is the 65 in the second innings that he got what he needs to turn his form around, turn his season around.
I think, to some extent, it's gone some way to proving his doubters, and I stick myself in that category, that actually he does have that in his locker. It's not just flashy kind of 20s and 30s and getting out with daft shots. He can actually dig in. What I want to see is him actually doing it more. So that's good. Now we know you can do it. Do it again. To be honest, it's almost the same with Vince. Obviously, we know that he's capable of digging in and putting up a kind of defiant knock. And he must have been in for near 8-9 hours, I think, to building his 200. But
it's apparently the longest innings of his career.
Really? Oh, okay. We just need a bit more of that in the first innings, because we flip that round. If we put 400 on in the first innings, then that game goes in a completely different direction. It's not, obviously, apart from picking up the extra batting points, it then puts the pressure back on Somerset. We've got the bowlers that can make an impact. We know that from other games. It really changes the game. So just asking for that performance on a consistent basis. I guess the frustrating thing is that if Rousseau is coming into form now in a kind of more stoic, defensive role that we've kind of needed from our middle order, that's not ideally suited to the 50 over games.
No. But at the same time, we talk more in depth than 50 over. My worry is that it was just a very flat pitch, and that it was kind of not too easy, but just conditions where a batsman could just stay in for as long as they wanted. As it seems, he's going to pretty much play no matter what. So let's just hope that he repeats it, and this is the kickstart that he needs to get him into form again.
Yep. In terms of what we've heard from those of you listening and commenting online, we are at Hans Fan Podcast, for those of you that do want to tweet in. A few tweets, one from Mark Budden, just saying, on reflection, fairly happy, Weatherly showing promise. As we've said already, Amla, great signing. I think Berg, something Mark highlights is that, Berg missing for 3 games, we really did miss him over that time.
Undoubtedly, the control that he brings, the batting lower down the order.
And the one of the other things really that we're kind of highlighting that after the draw at Somerset, we are seventh in the table. You know, we're we're 23 points clear of Worcestershire, but you know, as we said right from kind of game one, that's not going to say a lot. We were always anticipating they were going to be near the bottom. So, you know, as a number of you said as well, we're next to bottom on merit. In reality, from our performances so far.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing to not get too disheartened of is that there's a whole host of sides only sort of 3 to 6 points ahead of us, and we're actually only 22 points behind Nottinghamshire at the top. So
that's effectively
where
a strong win.
Yeah,
so
we've slipped from first to seventh in 5 games. We can just as easily climb the table with a few good results, but it's one of those things that I was sort of really sitting down after the Notts and Somerset games, thinking, "Oh no, here we go again."
Yeah, it's. I guess on the plus side as well, it's nobody's really running away with it as yet in the way that Essex did when they kind of came straight up and just carried that buoyancy and form onwards. So yeah, no, we're only a third of the way through. Let's not get too downhearted.
That's it. I mean, we get a few weeks off now. Looking at 50 over cricket, the championship come back in the middle of June with some quite exciting matches. Playing Surrey, Virat Kohli's going to be potentially playing at the Ageas Bowl. We're playing Lancashire, we're playing Yorkshire. So, and again, they're teams that are quite close to us in the table at the minute. So there's every chance of improvement. And hopefully everyone finds the 50 over competition to regain or find form. And that's going to be the next part of the podcast, is talking about the 50 over cup that gets underway for Hampshire this Saturday down at Hove.
Yeah, thinking about last season, didn't really set the competition alight. Finished 6th in the table, winning 3, losing 4, and no result in one of the games. Top scorer last year for us was our overseas player George Bailey with 312, picking up 78, but that includes a big century at the Oval. Tom Alsop, another Centurion, he picked up 112 at Canterbury. 200 runs or 203 in total. Riley Russo, in fact, got 196, but 156 of those were at Taunton. So that's obviously a happy hunting ground for him. Any other key stats you want to draw up from last year?
Yeah, I mean, I missed quite a lot of last year's One Day Cup because I was on honeymoon. So I saw the beginning, which was Tom Alsop getting a century at Canterbury, and then the rest I was following from afar. I was back in time for the final group game with Sussex, but unfortunately that was rained out. When I was looking at it from afar, there were two things that were immediately obvious. It was that it was great to see 4 batsmen make a century, but usually in the same game, there wasn't anything to go with it.
Yeah.
And Hampshire's big problem since 50 over cricket returned in 2014 is that they've struggled to regularly bat the full 50 overs. They're often bowled out well short of using up all the balls.
Yeah.
And 50 over cricket, one day cricket, is of course attacking, it's exciting, but rebuilding, consolidation, making the most of the death overs is just as big a part as going hell for leather from ball one.
Yeah, I think the kind of aspects of the game that was on TV right now, actually, or may have finished. You look at how Nottingham are approaching it, and they've got down to 280 in the last couple of overs, with wickets to spare, and then they can add. So it's just a slow build, and then just ramp it up. Now, if you can't bat the overs, you're never going to stick those extra runs on. And the issue of being, I guess, any score under 250, 220, around that, just isn't intimidating. I guess as a chase, you look at the scoring rates, strike rates of T20, transferred that into the 50 over game, and those chases are just so kind of routine now for teams to get. So we need to be, like you said, building and then making the most of the 50 overs that are there.
Exactly right. And the other thing that I noticed when I was sort of looking at the stats of the bowlers, that the bowlers were rotated just about every single game. Now, was this because they weren't sure what their best side was or their best attack? Or was it because they weren't happy with the form of various bowlers and were just trying to chop and change? Or were they just purely using it as an excuse to rest different bowlers? Crane was the best Hampshire bowler, 14 wickets at 27. He played every game. Reece Topley, 9 wickets at 33. I think he just played 5 games. Liam Dawson, 9 wickets at 33.
Yeah, you could understand an element of rotation. You look at the fixture list. Obviously, these games are all played in a block between the Saturday 19th. Well, for us, Saturday 19th up until Wednesday 6th of June. So you've got seven or so games in a space of a couple of weeks. You could understand an element of resting, but then again, it's maximum of 10 overs per bowler. So you'd like to think that they could definitely put their body through that without being particularly drained. I guess, you'd like to think we're trying to compete on all fronts, but in terms of priorities, does this definitely fall behind the Championship and the T20? You suspect that it might do.
Yeah, I think it will do. Also, just through the format where there's 9 teams in the South Group, only the top 3 go through to the latter stages, with the first team going straight to a home semi-final. So often, if you lose the first 2 or 3, or maybe even lose, 2 of the first 4, then qualification to some extent is unlikely at that point, and teams do seem to just use it to as practice.
Yeah, you could definitely see that happening. I mean, I don't want to see that happening, obviously, but to some extent, if it gives fringe players a bit more of an opportunity, then I guess that's probably for the greater good for Hampshire in the long run. I wouldn't want to turn up to a game thinking at the same time they're not putting the strongest possible lineup, though, because as a paying customer or fan, or to that extent, you want to see the best players every time you go and see it.
The other thing that we'll mention is that Hampshire went away pre-season to Barbados and played in the 50 over Caribbean tournament, and that did give exposure to 50 over cricket to a number of fringe players. So people like Asher Hart, Felix Organ, Brad Taylor that we've mentioned, all got games, but the tournament didn't go particularly well for Hampshire. They won 2, lost 6. But again, there were two issues out here. One, they regularly didn't bat the 50 overs, which is a problem that we've talked about over the last few years. Secondly, we could be fair to them and say that it is because the conditions out there are so different.
Yeah, that could be an aspect. Do you think we we mentioned his age earlier. The veteran Jimmy Adams. Do you think he'll be in the starting lineup?
It's hard to say. He has played the 50 over competition the last few years. Some people have given us their sort of potential 11 or the 11 that they would pick. I'm just trying to think whether we would play him or not. Would you play him?
I could see a situation where we're opening up with possibly Allsop and Weatherly. I mean, I wouldn't say we must drop him because he's not in form. You know, I think he's still definitely got something to offer if called upon. But you know, maybe I would be tempted to trial a kind of post Adams era kind of thing. You know, so used to seeing Carberry and Adams kind of open up in across all formats and thinking, well, maybe if this might be one of his last season, potentially, who knows? Then what's the harm in starting with the youngsters? I'm sure Allsop and Weatherly have batted or opened up numerous times with each other before. So yeah, I think it could be the way forward.
I mean, the other possibility is, I mean, it's not been done, I don't think, since the 40 over days, but the final seasons of 40 over cricket, James Vince opened with Michael Carberry, and that was quite successful. We were finalists, or we won the 40 over cup 2012. 2013 got to the semi-final. Before that competition was abolished and 50 over cricket was reintroduced. So I was wondering whether I would perhaps consider opening with James Vince. Gives him, if he's your best batsman, it gives him more overs at the crease.
Yeah, I guess there's a variety of candidates for it as well. You know, you might even, I'm not going to say stick Russo up there, but you know, if they're going to send him out with attacking intent, then that could be an option. I think it might be interesting to see Ian Holland come through, not opening up, so I should stay in the team because he seems to have come through the various surgeries and injuries over the winter break, and he's been scoring runs in the seconds, and I noticed that he's been bowling as well. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing him back.
Yeah, I think he's a good option in the Hampshire squad. I think we've missed him in the 4-day cricket. I think he does well in 50 over cricket. There's other suggestions. Yeah, obviously we're going to see Topley. Suggestions. So yeah, I mean, I think possibly Russo at the top of the order would be good as well, because you get the power play when the field is up, so that there's plenty of gaps in the field or what he needs. But of course, you are vulnerable early, because that is generally the only time when the white ball swings.
Yeah, I'm just having a think. When does Hashim Amla actually leave us? How much is he around for this 50 over tournament?
Good question. I believe he is around for most of the group stage, and I think again he's got some ODI record. There was 150 he scored for South Africa at the Ageas Bowl in an ODI a few years ago. So I'd quite like to see him batting in the top 3. And if Sam Northeast heals before the end of the group stage, then his record was Kent was particularly good. So
yeah, well, I would love a Lord's final.
Exactly. I mean, it's probably going to be the last one, I think, because I think they were moving the Lord's finals up to Nottingham. So this is potentially one of the last, if not the last, opportunity to get one.
Right. Let's set the date. We will be there.
So it's the finals 30th of June. So mark the date in your calendars. Because you just never know. I mean, we've got a big history of one-day finals, Hampshire. I mean, that 2012 final with Kabir Ali and Michael Bates breaking the stumps for that one-run win.
Yeah,
or was
absolute
it?
classic.
Yeah, and 2009, a bit of an easy victory against Sussex, but still a great day out. Warwickshire, 2005, the Ashes summer, so sort of Shane Watson, Andy Bickle, and then the sort of three finals that late 80s, early 90s, when I was sort of first supporting Hampshire, that were fantastic occasions. So yeah, it'd be good to be sort of winners of one of the last ever Lord's finals. I know finals day's overtaken it in terms of big days in the cricketing calendar, but you still can't beat a Lord's final for me.
Yeah, I was going to say there's still something timeless about it. Well, in terms of time and timelessness, I'm not sure what else we're thinking of adding on today, but we will definitely be doing a wrap up of the One Day Cup around the 6th of June for our 4th episode. Hopefully, we'll be reporting on the fact that we're cruising through to the semis at that stage.
Or at least the quarters.
Yeah. If you do want to contact us at any point, like I said earlier, you can get us on @HantsFan Podcast on Twitter. And Ian has sorted out our podcasting on SoundCloud as well. If you want to get hold of me individually, as I said at the start of the program, I am at Mr. Webb, but the E is a 3. And Ian, you are?
I am at Ian Pearce 100.
And I think that about wraps things up for today. Ian?
Yeah, no, that's all from me. I hope that those of you going along to the One Day Cup games enjoy them. 50 over cricket is still an exciting spectacle. I think we're going to have some good weather, certainly for the early games. So I hope we see some good cricket played, particularly with Hampshire coming out on top.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get down there on Monday 21st. So if you do spot us, do say hello. But otherwise, enjoy the cricket. Cheerio.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye.